Hi, my name is Genevieve. This is a presentation to help students recognize ineffective study habits and develop strategies to increase effective learning. At the conclusion of this presentation, students should be able to accomplish the following learning objectives. Explain why retrieval techniques are necessary for effective learning. Describe when you should practice memory retrieval techniques. Implement several retrieval strategies to boost memory retention. Research has found that most students practice ineffective study habits that do not support learning retention. Many students are frustrated that they have put in long hours of studying only to get an undesirable score. Students often wonder, what went wrong? How could they not have understood a chapter that they have reread 4 times? Their grade was not for lack of effort because they spent hours rereading the course material and highlighting critical notes. This presentation will assist students in recognizing ineffective study habits and be introduced to a study method called retrieval practice to improve retention of learning material. How many of you have books that look like this? I know mine did. I always felt a certain level of accomplishment when I filled my textbook with various hues of highlighter. According to research, study habits such as rereading the text and highlighting are one of the most ineffective ways to study. Nevertheless, most students report their study approach is to spend long stretches of time rereading their textbooks, a study known as massed practice. When students reread the material, they become accustomed to the language of the text. Many times, students misinterpret this level of familiarity with topic mastery. When students reread, they make the same interpretations about the content without further comprehension. Therefore, rereading is an ineffective way to study. Additionally, rereading and highlighting text are not effective study methods because you do not take the time to assess the topics that you don't understand. When you reread topics, you repeat the same interpretation of the course content. Therefore, the student is not testing the comprehension of the material. It would help if you evaluated what you don't know to improve areas of weakness in learning concepts. We will now begin to explore a method of learning called retrieval practice. Retrieval practice is a learning method that encourages the student to recall content without the use of notes or text. In other words, effective retrieval practice requires the student to reflect on the material and summarize the concepts in their own words. When a student uses retrieval practice, it is a way to assess what topics they understand and discover ideas that may need improvement. A survey conducted at Washington University in St. Louis found that only 11% of college students use retrieval practice when studying. Our brain does not physically bulk up like our muscles. However, each time an individual recalls information, they strengthen the neural pathways in their brain known as neuroplasticity, therefore changing the way we process specific information. The more we practice retrieval techniques, the more profound the neural pathway is ingrained. Neuroplasticity is the reason that some of our learning becomes instinctual. Instinctual understanding is necessary when we need to make quick decisions. For example, when driving and you encounter someone that cuts you off, you need to have a quick response to avoid an accident. Experiential research has demonstrated that retrieval practice is most effective when spaced over time, known as spaced retrieval practice. When you are trying to remember new material, it is beneficial to frequently assess the material and gather feedback to promote optimal learning retention. When you feel you have mastered the material, it is helpful to continue to use retrieval practice to ensure the topics are maintained in your memory. We are frequently taught that easier is better. However, when it comes to learning, students retain more information when there is some effort involved with information recall. As you're implementing retrieval practice, it is customary to forget some information, and it may take effort to remember the course material. Retrieval should be effortful. Experts have found that when retrieval practice requires some effort, that it results in better retention of learning material. For example, retrieval practice with flashcards and short answer exercises leads to stronger recall compared to true, false, and multiple choice exercises. The following slides will go over strategies you can implement for retrieval practice in each of your courses. Reflection is a fundamental way you can practice information retrieval that you can do anywhere. When you're done learning a concept, close your book and try to write down the significant ideas that you learned in your own words. For example, when you read a chapter, reflect on everything you can remember. Ask yourself, are there any significant concepts? Are there topics in the course reading that were confusing? Many students are familiar with utilizing flashcards to study. It is critical that when using flashcards, you take the time to create meaningful cards that will assist you in recognizing essential concepts in your course material. Do not hesitate to use pictures for the question side of the flashcard. Visualizing an idea can be a powerful tool for memory recall. When you are studying with flashcards, students will want to take the time to fully reflect and try to answer the card before flipping the card to see the response. Flashcards can be a great study tool to share with your peers and challenge each other on course topics that you may not have covered. There are many free online resources that you can use to create and share virtual flashcards. Some of the flashcard apps even allow you to study flashcards created by students worldwide. Students often cringe at the idea of taking more tests. Most individuals only view tests to assess competency on a topic. However, exams can be used as a powerful learning instrument to help us recognize how students can improve their understanding of a subject. Just thinking about a test as something to help students makes the idea of testing a lot less threatening. Research has shown that students that frequently measure their recall of learning material through practice tests do better when it comes to graded tests and exams. Students can often find that many publishers of textbooks will offer practice tests through the publisher's website. Now to wrap up what we have discussed regarding retrieval practice as an effective tool for learning retention. Popular methods of studying, such as rereading and highlighting text material, are not effective study methods. Students can improve their retention of course content by using retrieval practice. Retrieval practice is optimal when done frequently and spaced out over time. 3 ways to implement retrieval practice are through reflection, flashcards, and practice quizzes. That concludes my presentation. Thank you for taking the time to view this material. To view more information on retrieval practice, please refer to the references provided on the final slide.